We're recording. Can everybody hear me? I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me. And then once I know that, let's see, I'm going to look at chat. If you can hear me, just type yes in chat just to make sure that everybody can hear me. Yeah, okay, I'm seeing some yeses. Good. All right, so I am on with Ryan. He's going to be our presenter today. Um, it's 1:59 now, so as usual, I'm going to give a few minutes for everyone to trickle in, and for Ryan to get it set up and settled, and then I'll do a formal introduction, and Ryan will take over, and we will get this thing started. I'm going to put myself on mute. I think Ryan, he may be there, maybe on mute, but we will come back probably around 2:03, 2:04, and get everything started. All right? All right, perfect. Okay, so I can see. Hey, Brandy. Sorry, we were on mute. We were just waiting for some people to trickle in. Can you hear me now? You should be able to hear me. Um, so we were, like I said, we were waiting for some people to come in, and we see that, people are trickling in, but we do want to get started. The webinar is Ryan is going to be our presenter, and he's going to present on Yelp and how he has used Yelp to grow his business to six figures in less than a year. I've read through a download that we are going to be sharing with you guys at the end of this webinar. So he wrote an excellent guide and download that y'all are going to get. And I read through that about a week ago and started making some changes and have already seen some positive results. So you definitely want to listen to the end because the webinar has some great actionable things that you can do. And he has seen great results on his end, and I'm starting to see great results on my end. So between the techniques he's going to go through on the webinar today, and it's going to be probably about 45 minutes, and then the download that you guys are going to get at the end, you should really start to see some great results, you know, with your businesses, with your local service businesses. So with that, with that, I want to introduce Ryan Knoll of Tidy Casa. You have been in the cleaning industry for how long now, Ryan?
I think I'm going on about 3 years. I think we're coming up on that. So about 2.5 years now.
Okay, cool. And his first year did some amazing, impressive numbers. I don't know how much you want to share about that, but I can tell you that his numbers have blown mine out of the water. So you definitely want to listen in and see how he did that. So I just want to do a quick check. Guys, can you hear me? If you can hear me, type yes. And then I will turn everything over to Ryan. Okay, we're good to go. All right, so Ryan, go ahead and get started.
Cool, ready to rock. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah, we're good. So first, to start, a little bit about me. Like Dara was saying, so I've been doing the cleaning business for about 3 years now. Before that, I did SEO for I think 8 or 9 years. Kind of lost track at a certain point. But towards the end of that career, I was doing digital marketing for some really, really large companies like the Children's Place, PetSmart, Microsoft. Pretty much at the top of my career there, and I decided to leave that to start one of these local service businesses. Haven't looked back since. Since then, Tidy Casa has been able to get up to about a little bit over $70,000 a month in revenue after just 2 years. We're on track to hit $1 million this year for the yearly numbers. Also certified in Marketo. It's marketing automation software, Google Analytics, Search Metrics. So I know a little bit about this digital marketing stuff, just for those that don't know me. So real quick, now that the boring stuff's over, what we're going to cover, I'm just going to look at the Yelp setup, some basics about Yelp ratings. They're not quite as simple as you think. Go over some stuff on how to get great reviews, what gets hidden, what gets shown, how to get reviews to stick, and kind of avoid those not recommended reviews, how to get rid of negative reviews, something I've learned quite a lot about over the past couple of years. When you should be spending money with Yelp and how much, then we'll sum that all up for you and do a little bit of Q&A. So super quick, Yelp in a nutshell. Basically, we all hate Yelp. Like, we love it, we hate it. Definitely have a love-hate relationship with Yelp. It's that principle of if you do something good, they'll tell one person. If you do something wrong, they'll tell 10. Except it's tenfold because it's on Yelp, and now every human being in the world can read that negative review. So coming from a digital marketing background and doing SEO, I was very not set on Yelp. I basically hated Yelp. I thought it was kind of the enemy, and I didn't get why business owners would spend any money with it until a friend of mine convinced me that I should be doing this for Yelp. And at the time when I was first getting started, I figured, okay, I'm trying Thumbtack, I'm trying Amazon Home Services and Google AdWords. I might as well give Yelp a try too, just to see what's going to work for me. And after doing that, after about a year or two of being on Yelp, I started getting 30 to 60 new customers every month with very little time and very little money invested. So it turned out to be one of my biggest marketing channel by far. So I'm going to go ahead and run you through kind of what I learned doing that and what my kind of strategy is, and hopefully by the end you'll be ready to kick some butt on Yelp. So super quick, wherever I start when I see somebody who tells me that they're having trouble on Yelp is how their Yelp page is set up. So to kind of step back from that, I sort of put together a little flow here for how people use Yelp. So they're either going to land on Yelp from a Google search, or they're going to go directly to Yelp and do a search from there. The first thing that they do is they get served up that list of listings. They're going to look at the rating, they're going to look at the main photo, maybe read the business title, click on the Yelp page, look at a couple more photos, then they'll read 1 or 2 reviews, and then they're going to figure out if they want to work with you or not. And kind of the trick here, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is because customers can drop off at any point during that. If they don't like your photo, if they don't like your rating, obviously, if they don't like, the first review. So you have to nail it on all fronts to keep people engaged, keep people interested, and moving them down that kind of Yelp funnel. So the first thing that I see a lot of people messing up is their main photo and their thumbnail photo. Kind of the biggest thing is maybe it looks really good when you have it in the Yelp page and you're looking at it in full screen mode, but you have to remember that that photo is going to turn into this little thumbnail that you have over here, this tiny little 90 by 90 pixel thumbnail. And the trick that I've found is you need to find a photo that not only looks good when it's very large, but looks good when it's very, very small. So for people that have things like text in their logos and they want to just use their logo there, like, you got to remember that people probably aren't going to be able to read that text when it's 90 pixels wide. So for me, I'm always looking for, happy people, smiling people, people that are having fun. So this is straight up a stock photograph that I got that I use for my main Yelp photo of just a person cleaning, and she looks happy. That's the main thing that I was looking for. If you're doing restaurants or air conditioning repair or anything like that, somebody that's happy that's working there, restaurants, some nice food porn shots. Avoid doing things like your building. I really don't like people using their logo. I think the only time it's appropriate to use your logo is if you're like a Starbucks or a Target, where people have that brand recognition. For a lot of us who are just starting out, we probably got a couple years before we get to Target and Starbucks level, where we can just drop a logo on there and everybody knows what's going on. So the key here, when you're picking your Yelp main photo, is to make sure that it's going to be intelligible as a thumbnail photo and something that's going to be attractive to click on. Just very basic conversion rate optimization stuff. For the other photos, for cleaning businesses, the type of business that I'm running, I really like before and after photos. The one trick that I really like here is making sure that you have both the before and after photo in the same picture. Because what I've seen people doing from time to time is they'll have a photo that's clearly labeled before and a photo that's clearly labeled after, but they're in two different images uploaded at different times. And if you got to put yourself in the position of somebody who's on Yelp browsing through those, when you click on one of those photos, the before photo is just going to look like a pile of trash, and you don't want any pile of trash to be associated independently without that after photo. Like, that after photo is what makes that before photo look good. But don't just have the before photo and then have them click next to see the after photo, because I guarantee most people aren't going to be looking at all your photos. They'll look at 1 or 2, and they might just see a pile of trash and think that's the after photo. Because even when they're not the main photo, they still come up as these tiny little pictures that they have to click on to get more information. So if you have the before in the corner, like I have it here, they may not even see that and just think that's how you left a customer's house. So just be cognizant of that. But really love before and after photos. I just make sure to spend a little bit of time photoshopping them and getting them into the same photo so they get the whole picture. Another step is to make sure that you're providing everything and providing everything accurately. So another big part of this is coming from an SEO background. This is also important for SEO, and a lot of the stuff we do on Yelp does end up actually helping your SEO. So make sure that your hours of operation are correct, that you've got all the information in there for what credit cards you accept, information about the business owner. There's a bunch of info that Yelp lets you put in there. You could probably spend a week filling this thing out, but just take the time to do it, because it hasn't happened often, but every now and then I'll, talk to a customer who's like, oh yeah, I read your history and thought that that was a really cool thing you did and wanted to work with you because I like small business. it's not going to be everybody, but there's going to be that one or two people that, they're doing some really, really good digging, and this might be a deciding factor for them. And it takes you a couple minutes to fill it out. So just make sure you provide everything, make sure it's accurate, not only accurate here on Yelp, but accurate on your website too, and across all the different directories or marketing channels that you're using, so that there's a consistency there. That doesn't necessarily help with Yelp, but that's going to help you with SEO and other things, and just generally is important to do. So fill out everything, make sure it's accurate. For categories, another big thing that I see people messing up is stuffing categories in there, and I was even doing this for a while. So for me, we just do home cleaning services. We only do residential. We don't want the hard jobs. We don't want construction cleanings. We don't really want to work with businesses. We tried it for a little bit and decided it wasn't for us. So I took janitorial services off of my categories and just did home cleaning service. This is another really big important thing. If you're not doing businesses and you're not doing construction or carpet cleaning or any other type of cleanings, just put on there for the categories exactly what you do, because you really only want Yelp to be serving you up for that stuff. Because that's going to, when people call and say, hey, I've got this job, and you say, oh, well, we don't do offices, not only are you wasting time and money answering that phone call, but you don't want to be showing up in searches that are unrelated, especially if you're paying for Yelp ads, which we'll get into a little bit later. So just the categories that you do, be very specific with that. There's really no need to stuff those there. So jumping into ratings. So Yelp basics for ratings. This is normal. You would think that this is just like math, right? Like you get this many 1 stars and this many 5 stars, and then it evens out to this number. But Yelp doesn't do it like that. And I don't have tons of answers for the exact formula that they use, because it hasn't necessarily been published, but this is more of just a observation that I've made that I think is important. So they're not giving you the exact number. If you put it into a Google spreadsheet, average it out, you're going to get some wonky like 4.873, like I have an example here, but Yelp's going to round it up or round it down, but they don't do it consistently. There's not a cutoff. Like if you're 40% of the way to a 3-star, they'll round you down to 3. Like I've seen people that when you actually do the math on their reviews, they're floating at like 4.2 and they got rounded up to a 5-star. And I've seen people that if you did all the math, they get like a 4.8 and they got rounded down to a 4.5. So what I think Yelp is doing here mainly is using a historical perspective and looking at your past rankings and giving you an average, maybe more for the year than for where you are right now. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that seems to be the most consistent thing that I've seen. That's kind of my hypothesis on that. But basically, the good news here, and what I'm kind of trying to get off or get across, is that if you get a 1-star review, it's not going to show up in your average right away. So if you have 20 reviews and you get a 1-star, that 1-star would drop you from like a 5 to a 4.5. It's not going to happen right away. It can sometimes take 30 days before that average will drop. So that's kind of the good news there. On the other hand, if you're trying to turn a business around and you have a lot of negative reviews, it can be really hard to get that average to come up. So just something to more be cognizant of. So getting great reviews, this is probably the most important thing to do with Yelp. Obviously, people are looking at the reviews first. They're filtering out negative reviews. They're just looking at the top players in their space. So the first thing that obviously I have to say is the best way to get 5 stars is to offer a great product with great customer service. Great service, great customer service, bar none. That's what's going to get you to 5 stars, no matter what you're doing. So the strategies that I'm going to share with you here is going to help massage your ratings, but it can only do so much. At a certain point, you got to hire the right people, make sure you're doing a good job. So offering great customer service is number one. So with that, the first thing we need to talk about is all those damn not recommended reviews, which I hate. So if anybody's ever seen that, it's not uncommon for Yelp to literally be hiding like 60% of your reviews in the not recommended. And this is the way it was for my account too for a long time until I read a couple things online and tried a couple things out, and I found out that there's a couple of things that Yelp's doing when they're looking for what they're going to recommend and not recommend. So what Yelp looks for, from what I've seen, and there's a pretty long list of stuff, but the main things I've seen is, does that account that posts that review have a picture? Has the account posted multiple reviews? Have they linked their Facebook and email contacts? Have they logged in on their mobile phone? Like, is this an active Yelp account or just somebody who, you know, made it at 3 a.m. and wants to post a couple of fake reviews somewhere? Yelp's very, very big on trying to hide fake reviews and prevent them, and they've gotten really aggressive with it, especially in the past couple of months. So my main advice here is you can't really pay for fake reviews. I've tried doing fake reviews of my own. I've tried doing review exchanges, and they don't work. They don't stick. It's a waste of time and a waste of money. So just gotta offer a great service, and there's a couple of things that you can do to help get those good reviews to stick, because we all get them, but we got to keep them out of that not recommended area. So getting reviews to stick. So the reviews, they come and go. You can get a 5-star review from Yelp Elite, and then it'll be gone the next day. Not typically with Yelp Elites, but like I've seen it happen. Like I've had a couple Yelp Elite reviews that just kind of like dropped off after a couple of months. But most of what makes that Yelp review stick, like we were talking about in the previous slide, has to do with that actual Yelp profile, and we can't really control a lot of that. But there are a couple things we can do to make those authentic reviews stick. So the first thing that I always do, and I don't see a ton of business owners doing, is replying to the good reviews. Most people only reply to negative reviews because they feel like they have to tell their side of the story or whatever. But that's an actual photograph from my Yelp page, just thanking somebody for leaving me a Yelp review. I do this for every single good 5-star Yelp review that I get. No matter what. I just have the Yelp app on my phone. Whenever I see one of those come in, I tap on the notification, write a little couple sentences, and just say, thanks for supporting our small business, glad you enjoyed your home cleaning, and that tends to help a ton. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I do that helps get those reviews to stick. You know, and there's really no downside to it. It makes you look like a mensch. It makes it look like you're active on Yelp. It makes it look like you care about customers, and you're not only thanking them or defending yourself for negative reviews, but you're thanking them for being supportive of you, which I think people generally like to see. Another little SEO tip. So I kind of came from an SEO background, and I actually heard this from Mike Blumenthal, who's the guy who owns Get 5 Stars, when he did a presentation here in Phoenix, where I am, where he was testing it out that he found a business, got a Yelp page, and that hadn't claimed their Yelp page. He somehow ended up claiming it and started doing some like little SEO on it. And what he would do is he would reply like I'm replying here, and he would throw in little SEO keywords. So like you see in there, I say, happy with your home cleaning. That's a very specific choice in terms of getting that service in the reply. And what that does is it increases the relevancy of that keyword on your Yelp page. Yelp is like one of the best local SEO citations and a really good backlink that you can have for your website. So getting more of those keywords in there every couple of paragraphs with your replies can be really helpful for helping you show up higher in Google search results. So all things the same, if one business is doing this on Yelp and one business isn't, the business doing this on Yelp is going to show up a little bit higher in Google search. So little sidebar pro SEO, slightly related SEO tip for you there. So liking and complimenting, this is another thing that as a business owner you can do. The main takeaway from this is Yelp is looking for interaction on that review. So are people liking it? Do they think it's funny? Do they think it's cool? Are people flagging the review? Did the business owner comment on the review? If Yelp gets a signal that people think this review is awesome and people really like this review, they're going to let it stick around. The other thing that Yelp does is you can leave these from a PC, and you don't have to be logged into an account to mark something as useful or cool. So you can literally go in one day and mark every single one as useful and cool, and then go in the next day and log in with or get in your Google incognito mode and do it again. There's a limit to how much you can do it, but it doesn't seem like Yelp's really keeping tons of track on that. But just something good that you as a business owner can do is just marking those as useful, the positive ones, so they end up sticking around a little bit better. The other thing that I do, and that if you're using Launch 27, this should automatically be set up for you, is those follow-up emails. These are super, super important. We always make sure when we're taking somebody's information to ask them if they give us some, janky @AOL.com email address. We just make sure to follow up with them and say, please be sure to give us an email address that you're actually going to check. This is really important for us because we follow up with this. It's all about customer service. We want to make sure if you have a bad experience, we can reach out to you. So if you're using a Launch 27 right now, you'll recognize this. It was great, it was okay, it was bad. Those are those feedback emails that go out. Super, super important with that follow-up email that comes after this one when they mark it was great, to have that encouraging people to write a review on your Yelp page. The only real change that I made to that follow-up email is I put my actual link. I think the email says something like, go on our Yelp page and leave us a review. I just made that go on our Yelp page a hyperlink to the Yelp page, and specifically the part where you're leaving the review. So they click it and then it pops up with leaving a review, making it way easier for whoever's leaving a review to write that review and put it in the system. But make sure you have these enabled and you're using them, because these are really, really valuable. All right. My favorite part, negative reviews. Every time I get a negative review, I have like a baby heart attack. It's kind of sad. So the trick to keeping 5 stars or keeping your rating as high as you can isn't never getting a review. It's just not. We are all going to get negative reviews. It happens to literally everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. But learning how to remove those reviews is huge. So if you're in the service-based business, you're doing home cleaning or air conditioning repair or plumbing or carpet cleaning, you have the added benefit of collecting all your customers' information. You've got their phone number, their email, their address. So if you need to get a hold of them, you should be able to. So my kind of trick here is I have that Yelp app on my phone, and all the Yelp emails go into our support email. So if we see a negative review come through, we're checking it right away within a couple of minutes. And we're either replying to a really good review or calling that person right away and saying, hey, what happened? What can we do to make it right? The trick that I use, and what I've kind of found very, very useful for not only for me but for my staff, is this method called HEARD. So HEARD basically stands for hear, empathize, apologize, remedy, and then diagnose. If you're ever in a situation where you're looking at a negative review and you can't really figure out what to do with it, using this method can be a great template for how to respond. So the basic kind of roundabout thing here is saying something like, I hear what you're saying, I'd be upset too. That's kind of the, so hearing them out. So I hear that, you were at work and you trusted us to come in and we didn't do X, Y, and Z. Empathizing with them, I totally understand. If I was in that situation, I would be upset too. Apologizing, I'm so sorry that that happened to you. What can I do to make this right? And then obviously the diagnosing part is something you're going to do with your team internally afterwards. So sometimes this means I'm giving a refund. Sometimes this means I'm literally just on the phone with them listening to what they have to say. And you can find a little bit more information on this. I posted a link here to a really nice blog post about the HEARD method. This is something that was developed by Disney Corporation for their customer service at their theme parks. And I found it to be really, really useful. So I make all my new employees read this blog post, and I live by it. And if you ever can't think of what to tell somebody, just kind of go through this in your head and make sure you hit on all those things. If you can't figure out how to remedy a situation, like maybe it's just a really weird review, just asking the customer, what can I do to make this right? Putting it in their court, and they will usually start the negotiations with, well, I'd like a partial refund, or I'd like a full refund, or I, just want to never hear from you again, whatever it is. But that, making sure to do that and following up with every single bad review, because you're going to get them. Just gotta work on it. So the other thing that happens is a lot of the times we get the negative review, we can call the customer, they'll pick up an answer, or whatever. But occasionally you get people that just won't respond to phone calls, won't respond to emails. So you got to figure out what to do in that case. So for this lady, this is an actual review that was posted on my Yelp page. She was upset about how expensive we were and how the home cleaning didn't go right because she had to go back and clean it up. And like, we literally call everybody at the end of the day and ask them how we did. We send those follow-up emails. We didn't hear anything from her, so we assumed we did our part. We were all good to go, and she was going to be fine. And a couple weeks later, she posts this 2-star review. Anything below 4 stars, I try to get removed. So 2 stars, just as bad as a 1 star in my book. So, called, emailed, couldn't get a hold of her. The next step is always a text message. So we always make sure to do the call, email, text message. If they don't respond to either of those, then you can reply on or send them a direct message through Yelp. But I have never seen anybody respond to those. So we use a basic template for sending text messages, and I got to give some props to Brandon from Made Complete, because he's kind of the one that sort of helped me figure this out. But the basic template that we use, hey, Nicole, it's Ryan from Tidy Casa. We have a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Let us know what we can do to make you happy. We hate seeing reviews like yours, and we'll do anything to take care of you. Throw a little smiley face in there so they know you're not bitter. And it's just very short, sweet, to the point. You can get it across in one solid text message. It brings up that there's a Yelp review that you didn't like. They know they posted that there. And this really opens up the door to getting them to respond and set you up to help them. So after we sent this text message, like, we were literally trying to get a hold of this lady for 2 or 3 days. She finally responded to the text message within like 5 minutes, which opened up a conversation that we could have with her. And in that document that Dara said she's going to send out, that I helped put together, I have this whole text conversation that I had with her, exactly how we resolved it, and like every single text message we had back and forth. So make sure to check for that later. But responded within a couple minutes. I basically used that herd method, like, hey, I understand that you're going through this. I know you're moving. Like, I'd be upset too if I had to spend 2 hours. Like, moving is so much work. Sorry you had to go re-clean after us. Whatever. We ended up giving her a partial refund, and she removed the review within a couple minutes. So not a bad deal. So just a general little sidebar here. Negative reviews suck for everybody. Whenever I get one, I get sad and upset and angry and all the emotions that you feel when you're working 60 hours a week and working really hard on a business, and then someone just literally poops on it. But kind of what I find is, once I get people talking, I find out that they're just having a hard time dealing with life. A lot of the times it's not really about you or your business or whatever else. They're just going through their own stuff. So you kind of got to put yourself in their shoes. And for me, like, a lot of times it's like, oh, I'd probably feel the same way if I was going through what you're going through right now, and we came in to clean your house and it wasn't up to par or whatever. But the trick is to always get that, stay neutral, stay calm. We all have a lot at stake with our businesses, and especially for me, where Yelp is like one of my biggest things. If I get a negative review, that can sink my sales. So just stay cool, keep it together, know that you can probably get this removed, and just get it handled. Like, don't try not to get emotionally involved. Like, I've had conversations with other business owners about removing negative reviews, and they're like, what tone of voice do you use when you call somebody to get a review removed? And I just always 100% stay neutral. I'm not mad, I'm not happy, I'm just, hey, I saw this review, what can we do to fix this for you? I'm really sorry. You know, because as soon as you start bringing emotions into it, things can get escalated pretty quick. So, worst case scenario. I really love this. The French Laundry is like one of the best restaurants in the United States. Like you look at any like top 10 restaurants in America list, French Laundry is always like top 5. It's like bar none, like one of the just absolute best in the country. They've got over 2,000 reviews, and if you look, they've got like hundreds of one-star reviews, which I think is absolutely hilarious. So anyway, the kind of the takeaway here is everybody gets these negative reviews. Sometimes you just can't get them to go away. Like in this case, she never even went to the French Laundry. Or no, she did. This one, oh yeah, I read so many of these, and they're all so funny. But she's like talking about how it wasn't worth the money and wasn't worth the wait, and she should go to this other place down the street. It's just complete BS review. She's like, I only enjoyed 3 of the 7 courses. Oh my gosh, first world problems. But anyway, it'll inevitably happen. You will get a review that you can't get removed. Everybody gets them, even if you're the French Laundry, which is the best, one of the best restaurants in the United States, like probably one of the best restaurants in the world. You're going to get some negative reviews. So just know it happens to everybody. There's just some people that you can't make happy. So on that note, if you can't get a review removed, you know, don't get worked up over it. Everybody's going to have one of these. Even I've got a couple 1-star reviews that just are not going anywhere. You know, something happened, we talked to the person, even though we didn't even charge him for the service, gave him a full refund, they'll say it's principle, or I just want people to know what my experience is, or some, you know, holy war they're fighting against bad people, and yeah, I don't know. People get very emotional about their reviews and want to be heard. So the best thing that you can do, if you call them, you email them, you text them, they're just absolutely not listening to reason, they will not remove this review, is to just write a very thought out, well-rounded response. Don't get emotional. Use that same herd method in your response, and make sure you're painting the picture of what happened, that you did everything you could, and it's the customer who's not accepting your olive branch, not meeting you halfway, and not working with you by choice. I think most people, when they're reading Yelp reviews, they know that you can't make everybody happy. Every single human being in the world has had this experience. Doesn't matter what business you're working in or who you are. We've all had a customer or a client or a whoever that we're dealing with that just will not be happy because they're a miserable person. So the best thing that you can do in this case is just make sure you're being honest, you're sharing all the information. Hey, we went over there and we had your refrigerator on the list for things to do. We didn't clean your refrigerator, but we gave you a refund for that. When you posted the review, we gave you a call to see if there's anything else we could do. You told us that there was nothing else we could do. Then you posted this review and we called you again and you said that, you know, you weren't interested, you just wanted to post this review, so here we are. That's really kind of the best way. So, you know, don't resort to name calling, don't get angry or upset, just straight up, these are the facts, here's what we did to resolve it, and here's where we are, which is you leaving us a review and not being very nice about it. All right, Yelp ads. So spending money with Yelp, when you first get started and you have 0 reviews, paying for Yelp ads isn't going to get you where you want to go. So I went through the same thing where I was paying for Yelp ads from the time I had like 0 review. No, I think I waited till I had like about 5 reviews. I started paying for Yelp ads, and you just don't get the money out of it that you think you're going to at first. It does take a little while to build this up. So I always recommend paying for Yelp ads and buying Yelp ads, but there's a certain ebb and flow to when you should pay for those, and honestly when you should stop and it doesn't make sense for you anymore. So what I've found through not only my business but other businesses that I'm friendly with or I've been talking to is when you have 0 reviews, just buy the Yelp basics. These are the remove competitor ads, call to action button, those type of things. I think it's about $75 a month. So just pay for just the basics, no ads, until you get up to about 10 stars with a 4 to 4.5 star average. Once you get to 10 reviews, start buying Yelp ads via their self-serve platform. Start with what you can afford, increase as you need. So when I, you know, 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago when I first started, I think I was literally paying Yelp like $120 a month, and that was the Yelp basics for $75, and then like, 40 or $50 or whatever it was I was spending at the time for Yelp ads just to get that out there a little bit more, which was exactly what I needed at the time. I only needed 2 or 3 calls to really make the business work at that point because I only had 1 or 2 cleaners to start growing up. So, start with what you can afford, increase as you need. So if you see that, the $50 is working for you, make it 100, make it 200, and increase it as your ability to take on more work increases. And then the tricky part that I found, and it was kind of nerve-wracking when I did it, was there's going to be a certain point where you're looking at your Yelp analytics and you realize that you're paying $400 or $500 a month for Yelp ads, and you're getting 50 visitors from that, but organically you're getting thousands. And that's where I found myself after I had about 100 reviews, was I was paying $400 or $500 a month, and it was literally giving me an extra 50 people, but I was getting thousands of organic visitors on Yelp because I had so many reviews and I had a good solid average. I was being very active on Yelp. And my Yelp page was showing up in search results and everything else. So it was very nerve-wracking, but I cut those back just a little bit when I was between 60 and 100, and then once I got to over 100 reviews, I just basically went just back to the Yelp basics, the same place I was at when I had no reviews, which is just paying for a couple $100 a month to get the ads off there and everything else, the call to action buttons and whatever. I've seen a lot of other business owners do this, and there's no reason to be spending $1,000 with Yelp like they will call and tell you to do when you have hundreds of reviews, because you're organically going to be getting that traffic anyway. So kind of the goal is using those ads to supplement your organic traffic until that organic traffic is enough to supplement you. So another little side note is just never ever sign a contract with Yelp. And I put a whole slide in here on this. I wasn't even going to include this originally, but Yelp contracts are terrible. I've never seen any benefit from them. So I was on a Yelp contract for a year. So I was doing the self-serve ads. I was spending a couple $100 a month. And when they call you with those contracts, they'll say, oh, we've got a minimum of $500 or $800, or you should be spending at least $1,000 a month. But the truth is, with the self-serve ads, I can turn the dial up to 300, I could turn it up to 1,000, I could spend $5,000 if I wanted, and then I can turn it back down the next month to $100. You can't do that with a Yelp contract. There was a point when I was growing, I had my Yelp contract, I literally wanted to spend like an extra $100 a month with them, and it took me probably a month worth of emails and calls before Yelp finally was able to let me spend more money with them. So whether you're increasing your budget or decreasing your budget or doing anything with Yelp, the contract takes that self-serve ad portion out of your hands, and they'll tell you, oh, you're getting a Yelp manager to help with X, Y, and Z, but it's crap, and it's absolutely not worth it. Never sign a Yelp contract. They will call you nonstop, but just tell them you got the self-serve ads, you're more than happy with them, and call me in a year or whatever. And sometimes if you give them a date to call you back, they won't call you the next month. They'll wait. So moral of the story is just don't sign a deal with the devil and get on that Yelp contract. You can do it all self-serve, and it's going to be way more beneficial for you and your company. So just kind of to wrap all that up, Yelp's a pain in the butt. Nobody really likes it, but it's a necessary evil. And you need to set up Yelp and treat Yelp like a marketing channel, just like you're doing SEO, pay-per-click, Facebook ads, social media. You need to treat it that way because whether or not you like it, Yelp is there, and eventually it's going to show up on this #1 search result for your company. Um, so necessary evil. Gotta gotta learn to use it. So I'll throw that back to you, Dara, for the Q&A.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I learned some stuff that I need to do to update my profile. So that's certainly helpful. And like I said, Ryan put together an amazing, in addition to this great webinar, put together an amazing PDF that I'll be sending out probably end of day today or early tomorrow morning to everybody that's on the webinar that has these actual steps you can take right in front of you. So I did want to open it up to questions. I have one, but I will read a few that we have first, and then, if there's time for mine, I will ask mine as well. So feel free to start writing them in chat, and I will answer them, or I will ask Ryan as they're being written in chat. So, Ryan, the first thing someone wrote is, I thought someone said not to use the link and have people find it organically so that they stick. So I guess what she's saying is not to send in your emails, not to send people directly to your profile, rather ask them to search so that the reviews will be more likely to stick.
Oh, you're saying so if they search and find it, and I mean that might be true. I haven't seen any evidence of it. All I know is that when I made it an actual link, um, it's it seemed to increase the amount of reviews I was getting because it was just less steps for people. Kind of took away some of the friction of leaving that review. I know. So, and I don't know a ton about Yelp's algorithms and how they make that work, but what I can attest to being an SEO expert for so many years is I do have a pretty good understanding of how most algorithms and search algorithms work. And I know when, in terms of Google search, it was a common misconception that the more traffic I get to my website, the higher Google's going to rank me. But it really had very little to do with the actual traffic on the website. There were some things about interactions between search results and web pages, but I mean, it just typically doesn't work that way, and I don't think that Yelp is that advanced, to be honest. Like, it took Google 15 years before they ended up doing anything like that, and it was a very, very, very small signal. So I mean, that may be true. I'm not just discrediting that, but I haven't necessarily seen any evidence that that helps or doesn't help. But for me, I just like to remove as much friction as possible so people can just click a button, leave a review, and I can get those more reviews. I think more reviews is probably going to be more beneficial than the interaction between the search results and your listing.
I have a question.
Sure.
What do you do to encourage? Or I should say, do you do anything to encourage your cleaners to get reviews on Yelp?
So that's something that I've been thinking about doing, but it's not something that I've set up yet. I mean, I've seen people do it. I had a moving service that helped me move my house last time I moved, and I remember those guys would say, "Hey, leave a Yelp review and put my name in the Yelp review. My name's this," and I'm sure that they were getting a kickback from Yelp reviews. And this business that I was working with had like 200 or 300 Yelp reviews, just like a local, move you from this side of the street to that side of the street type moving service. And they were killing it on Yelp. Not something that I do, but something I've been looking into. I just haven't had time to kind of think about that and set that up. There hasn't been a big need for it for me.
Okay, super interesting. So I'm currently doing that, and we have seen an increase. It seems to work best in Google for me. Yelp just seems like a lot of, I guess there's a barrier for
Yeah.
some people. Google, they just kind of they're already probably signed into Gmail, so whatever. But I have been doing. I give each of my employees business cards. It makes them feel special. But I have seen an increase, but I don't know if that's the most beneficial way to get these reviews. But I have seen an increase. So
That's awesome. So what do you do you give them like an incentive? Like you get
yeah,
$10 or Starbucks gift card if they
yeah, they get a bonus every time someone leaves a review and mentions their name, and their business cards just
awesome.
say something like, "Hi, I'm team Tasha. If you love what I if you loved me," or I forget the exact word. It's something like,
Yeah.
"If you love me." me a review on Yelp and mention me, and I will get a bonus. And people like
Oh, that's
helping
cool.
others, and it kind of gives that feeling of, oh, I helped you and I liked you, and so it has worked.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I definitely like that. I like that idea because it's like it's not, oh, you're helping this business, which is an unseen whoever up in a tower somewhere. It's this person, this human being is getting helped by you leaving that review, which I really like.
yeah, and then also the
Smart.
cleaners get business cards, so they feel important, and
Right.
it gives everybody this feeling of, okay, I've got something that's mine.
Yeah, I dig that. Yeah, I tried giving people business cards at one point, but then I found out none of them were carrying with them. But I guess if I if I tied a bonus to it,
Yeah,
they might like it a little bit better.
suddenly they get excited about it.
Hmm.
So,
All right, that's a
uh,
good idea. I'm gonna try that.
so we have another question, and it's not really on topic, but I guess we can ask. It says, do you pay your cleaners a set hourly wage or a more piece rate to encourage productivity? I want to pay people well and keep them happy, but I struggle with what to pay when crunching the numbers. And that's from Colin.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've got an answer for this too, Darks. I know you've gone through it. But for a long time, this was like the biggest thing that I was thinking about. It took me, so there's this period where my business wasn't doing as much growth, and it was this time when I was trying to figure out like, okay, W-2s, contractors, this, that, like what's the best way to do it? And I just tried doing people hourly. And what I found for me personally, when I paid people by the hour, it would essentially cost me the same because I just worked out the pricing so that it cost me the same. But then the cleaner ends up taking home $12 an hour from what I was doing, and then after taxes, it comes down. It ends up being like $7 an hour or something. And I try to pay them from the time they start to the time they're done. But then now I'm tracking hours. I'm trying to verify they're at a location. I'm paying them as employees, like trying to pay them mileage. And it became very, very complicated, and I found that I was spending more time managing that than anything else. Um, on that same note, when I was paying people by the hour, they seemed to be incentivized to do one house and take as long as they could. So for me, what I found works the best for my business, and I know there's no right answer to this because I've talked to people that are much larger than me paying by the hour and people that are, people like me who just pay a percentage. But I just give people a percentage of everything, which includes the cancellation fees and everything else. I've got a little clause in my contract that I call the equal partners clause, and it just basically says whether I'm getting a cancellation fee or a re-cleaning or whatever, we're equal partners in it. So if it's your re-cleaning, you got to do it for free, and I don't get paid for it either. If it's a cancellation, you get paid for that too. And people tend to resonate with that more. The reason I kind of went to that is I found out that the people that I was competing with to hire cleaners, in most cases, were people that are used to, or cleaning people are used to getting paid in cash. And the closest that you can kind of get to that, even if you're trying to offer benefits and everything else, is just paying a percentage. And even though I'm 1099ing them, they have to pay taxes on it. Like I just can't compete with somebody paying them $500 a week in cash. Even if I'm paying them, $500 as W-2, they're only taking home a couple $100. And then when I try to do like benefits and things like that, like, hey, do you want life insurance? Do you want a 529 for your kid to go to college? Do you want health insurance? Nobody was interested in it. They just wanted the cash. They wanted the money, and so I found it simpler for my business, easier for me, and people tended to be a little bit happier when I just paid them a percentage for just whatever we bring in. So I start people at 57% and kind of work them up to 65% for the people that are really, really good, and I never have to do a re-cleaning, basically. So that's what I do. Yeah.
I love that answer. I wish I did that as well, but unfortunately I don't. I think Brian has the right answer. For me, I'm paying hourly. It's not the best way to go about things. Yeah, I found in my area, people expect it hourly. And so, when I was trying to do a percentage, it was kind of the opposite for me. And like I
Yeah.
said, Rohan has told me to do percentage, and I tried it, but the thing for me was I have to offer discounts based on where the job comes in. So if a job is X amount and it's 3 bedrooms and then it's X and I get it on Thumbtack, it's going to be slightly less than if I get it on
Oh,
Yelp.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and then if the house is cleaner and they made $80 and then they do a dirtier house and they made $80. The employees I
Yeah.
have that I've worked with are just they've been headaches. I think a large part of it is where I am, and they just have a lot of expectations. So even just the little change in that amount of money that they were getting for the amount of work they were doing was always an argument. So for me, I found that it was less of a headache to pay them hourly. What I do is I use Launch 27 mobile app, so they know the duration of the job, and if they go into a house and it looks like it's going to be bigger than what the duration says, they give me a call, we talk to the client, blah blah blah. But in the end, it ends up working out to be the same or a little less than the percentage because I do set those strict parameters in terms of duration. So if it's a certain house, they can't be in there longer than X amount of hours, and then that ends up being 50% or 40% of the job. And I just found that for me, I didn't want to have to fight on every, you know, they don't care about, for my employees don't care about equal partners. They just want theirs, and they want to make sure that they're getting paid accurately. So I went that route, and I cannot say if it's the best route because sometimes they go over and I don't make as much money. Sometimes they go under, and it's great for me. But I found when I was trying to do percentage, it was a lot of fighting about, well, this house is dirty, or why am I only getting paid this? So that's what has worked for me.
Yeah, no, and I run into those same problems where they show up and, oh, like why am I only getting paid this? And it's like, oh, we're giving that customer a discount for X, Y, and Z reason. Sorry that we're stiffing you on this one, but so it does end up being a lot of this and that. And I honestly don't think there's a right answer to you do this or you do that. It depends on your market, depends on your cleaners, depends on a lot of different things. Kind of one of the bigger deciding factors for me too when I was making that decision is I was talking to a business coach and I was asking him, like, if I have a business that mostly works with contractors, does that make it harder for me to get acquired or to sell my company? And he says it didn't matter. As long as the company's making money, nobody really cares how you're doing it. As long as it's not illegal, so either way, you're going to be fine, just as long as you make sure if you're doing contractors, you're setting it up right legally, you've got the right contracts, got the right insurance, and same thing with the W-2s. Like, there's no right answers to this, and I've done tons and tons of research on it for like months. I was just trying to figure this question out. There's not a right answer. It's just whatever works best for you and your lifestyle and kind of what your goals are with the company, I guess. So.
Okay, yeah. And as Gina said, you're either policing time or you're policing quality, and I agree on that. It's just whatever your business, whatever you it works for you, whatever works for your business. Like it sounds like have to make sure that they are spending the amount of time that ensures that there's quality. And for me, I have to make sure they're not spending too much time. So
Right. Yep.
really, whatever headache you want to deal with.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult either way. So you just got to figure out which one you're more comfortable with, I guess.
And then someone asked if your IC wear uniforms and how you deal with that.
No, mine don't. My general kind of rule with business is that if I don't hear about it, I'm not going to make it a problem. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to switch over to employees originally, was I like the idea of things being consistent and having a market, and I think there's a huge opportunity for marketing with wrapped vehicles, which aren't super expensive when you really kind of start looking into the numbers and you're buying used leased vehicles, and you can get them wrapped for a couple grand. There's a huge market for that, just in terms of like people seeing that car driving around. Like, we're driving constantly, they'll see it at their neighbor's house, and oh, hey, I was looking for a clean. I really wanted to do that. This is like, as a marketing guy, like the uniforms, the branded products, the whatever. But it ended up being a little bit too much for me to take on in terms of converting the people that I had that were contractors into employees, and yeah, so. Short answer, no, they don't. They don't wear uniforms. Long answer, I'd love it if they could, but I can't as independent contractors. That's kind of another side of that coin, and a benefit that I had to kind of let go when I decided to go contractors.
Someone wrote one tip I've heard about is paying a percentage to the team leaders and hourly to partners. Team leads are motivated to get out of the house on time, and you can control the cost of the partner. That sounds good. It sounds like a lot to calculate. I'm already
Yeah.
calculating enough, but that does sound interesting. For me,
Yeah.
what I do is, like I said, I use the Launch 27 mobile app, so it has duration in there. They know how long they should be in there, and then at the end of the day, I put everything into a spreadsheet. And so then at the end of the week, I have everything in a spreadsheet, so I can look and see how many times they've gone over. I can look at all my costing and all of that stuff, and then I just have a simple, it just adds up their hours for me, and I just pop that into a payroll system. So I control it that way, and I'm also throughout the day looking at the app just to make sure that they're staying, within the time limits. We're actually also updating the app because this is one thing that has been helpful for me. But we're updating the app that if a team goes over the duration by a certain amount of time, and you can set the time, you'll get a message saying, okay, Team X has been at the house for now 30 minutes over the duration. Um, and so that helps me. I'll just
Oh,
check it.
yeah, that's gonna be cool.
Yeah, you just check in and say, hey, what's going on, and also it lets you know if they're late to the next appointment.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about that, that's pretty cool. Because I know with just thinking out loud with Zapier, you can drop stuff into Google Spreadsheets from Launch 27, like on the trigger that like the thing was completed. So you might even be able to automate that, dropping it into a spreadsheet for you and calculating it. Like 90% of that you could probably just get done with Zapier. So
Yeah,
that
I
could
mean,
be another thing where it's like just not as hard as people think sometimes.
yeah, for me, my virtual assistant does it, so I really don't even
Oh,
have to.
perfect. Yeah. Now, there you go.
It's
That's kind of the trick to the whole thing, just figuring out who else can do it for you.
exactly. It's one of those things where it needs to get done, but at the end of the week, I just want to see numbers. I don't want to do it myself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, however you automate that or get someone to do it, I definitely suggest tracking things that way.
Cool. Good questions.
You insure and bond your contractors. If not, does he have a type of insurance for his business at all?
Yeah, not a lot of Yelp questions, but I'll go for it. No. So there are some things that you have to do. So I do have workers' compensation insurance that I carry, but we make all of our independent contractors sign waivers of workers' compensation, and I make them sign a contract saying that they have insurance of their own, and then we get put on there as a additionally insured. So we're additionally insured on their general contractor insurance, and they're either sole proprietors and have a waiver of workers' compensation or something similar to that. And those are all things that are provided by our insurance. That was not necessarily easy to set up. I actually had to find an insurance company and an insurance broker who was familiar with cleaning businesses and find an insurance company that would allow for those waivers. Because without that, workers' compensation for cleaning staff where I'm located in Arizona, it was like 12% or something ridiculous. And then I made some changes, got it down to like 5%, but like the cheapest I could get is like 4.5% of their total take home. So if I pay them $500,000 a year, which is what I think I ended up paying out last year for independent contractors, that's a huge chunk. We're talking. It was like 5 figures for this insurance that they're not even really allowed to use, but the insurance wants you to pay for independent contractors too. So you just got to find the right insurance company that's not going to audit you in a year and say, oh, hey, by the way, you owe us $30,000. So that not necessarily easy to set up, but I was able to find a guy who works with a lot of cleaning companies and can help with that. And I think there's a couple people in the Groove Learning group or the Launch 27 group that do that kind of thing too. So that it's out there. You just got to do your research. And just make sure you're not getting audited for it later, because that'll be a pain in the butt.
And again, not a Yelp question, but is it's very hard to find independent contractors who are already insured. You hire non-insured cleaners first, and then have them get insured.
Yeah, it is almost impossible. I think I found one team ever, like ever, that was already insured, like ever. Um, so yes, it's very difficult to find them. Basically, what I do is I have this very long contract that's like 8 or 9 pages. I sit down with them, read the contract through with them, and then I hand them a sheet of paper that says, I'll give you 30 days to figure out the workers' comp because we want you to get a little bit of money in your pocket. I know you probably can't afford to do it right now because those general liabilities and all those types of insurance usually want you to pay up front, even if it's just a couple months up front. So even if their insurance is a relatively cheap general liability insurance, would be like $50 a month. They'll need 150 bucks. That's a lot for people that are making, a couple $100 a week. So, I give them a couple days to do it, then I hand them a sheet saying, call this company, or this company, and they'll be able to set you up with a plan. So they have some options. And then on that sheet, I just say, make sure you make us additionally insured, so that we get the coverage too. And then, of course, we have our own. There have been a couple cases where people, especially early on, where things broke or had to replace stuff. And we had to use our insurance, and we were able to get our insurance to cover those. So, just making sure that you're insured one way or another. But no, I don't look for that, because that's just not how most people think. When you're an individual, so kind of what I look for is individuals who already have 3 or 4 houses they're doing a week, and they just want to do a little bit more, but they can't do the marketing end of it, or they are spending so much time cleaning that they don't have time to look for customers, or they don't know where to look for customers. And those types of people just typically they're not going to have insurance, because they, burn your rug to the ground or your house starts on fire, they're probably just going to bail, and not answer your phone calls, to be honest. I don't know what their plan is in those situations. They're also on the job, so they're thinking, oh, I'm here, I'm not going to break anything, I never break anything, why would I need to pay that money? But it's not until you kind of get to the level that we're at where you're like, okay, we really need to figure this out so that if something catastrophic happens, we don't lose the business. So I've never found one that had insurance coming in. I think maybe, like I said, I think maybe one person had it, but that was a very, very rare and very weird thing. Like they're never incorporated, almost never. I think I've had 2 people that were ever incorporated, and one of them had insurance. So.
Cool. So this is a quick marketing question. Facebook updates are done by some great maid services using stock photos. Do you do this sort of marketing yourself, or is it outsourced to a service? If outsourced, can you point us at a provider? And I'm not sure what that means, but
Yeah, so what was the I've missed the first part of that. What posts?
Facebook updates are done by some great maid services using stock photos.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I tried Facebook a little bit. And I had a couple of people, friends of mine, that I was using for that, and I just didn't get a ton out of it. I think I tried it for a couple of months, and basically when I first started up the company, I literally tried everything, and I just cut things really quick when they weren't working. So SEO was working for me, I kept that going. Pay-per-click was kind of working for me. I found a better provider who's helping me with that now. And same thing with Facebook, it just wasn't working for me, so I stopped doing it. But the one thing that I have found is kind of starting to work, and I'm testing, isn't finding jobs on Facebook, but finding people looking for jobs. So I've been testing it a little bit different. Instead of looking for new customers, I'm looking for new contractors. And that's been working okay so far. We're still kind of massaging that one and trying to figure that out, but I might do a post on that when I get that a little bit more dialed in. But I just, as a general rule, it hasn't worked for me. That could just be because I wasn't working with the right providers or didn't understand it enough. But that, I mean, that was me. I don't know. I'm not really big on social media. I mean, I like social media. I just, as a marketing channel, I find it a little bit difficult for services that are are like ours. I think you have to be like a fancy car company or higher end luxury watches or restaurants. I think you can do really well for. I'm not sure about plumbers and air conditioners and maid cleaning services and the pool guy. Like maybe the pool guy, you can make that one kind of funny, but you know, I had trouble with it. There's only so many posts you could do about top 10 tips. Um, yeah, that was the other thing that I did. So there's this just a little side note. There's this website called, I think it's datafinder.com. Don't quote me on that. I'm 90% sure that's it. But what it'll let you do is you can drop in a spreadsheet of all of your customers, and it'll pull demographic data based on their social media profiles. At the time, I had like 1,000 people in there, so I think I got some pretty good numbers. But one of the things that I found is like when I was trying to do social media posts, you think like, oh, the best types of social media posts are going to be for like a cleaning company are going to be like how-tos or time-saving tips or something along those lines. But what I found from that demographic research I did through Data Finder is that most of the people that I was targeting or that were my customers, they weren't necessarily rich. They were not interested in how-to videos at all. And the main takeaway that I got was that the people that I'm going after are people that are incredibly busy. So they're probably not going to be on social media a ton. Like that's really the biggest thing that I found is people aren't paying us, $10 an hour to put a hand in a toilet. They're paying us, a couple $100 to get their time. They're paying for their time back, not paying for our time, which I think is a little bit different and kind of changes what makes sense when it comes to where to market. I just couldn't make social media work for me very well. So.
Okay, so I have one last question. As a former SEO guy, I'm curious your thoughts on percentage of Yelp ads versus Google ads. What do you think is more worth your time to spend your money on?
Oh, sure. So it depends. If you're working with the right people, so I started working with this guy, Robert Nordovic, in the Groove Learning and Launch 27 group, who's been really, really helping me out. And he's been doing a good job for me. You have to find the right people to do Google AdWords. It can be really, really difficult. If you don't get the cost per acquisition down, it's a terrible option. But for me, what I ended up doing is I tried literally everything. Thumbtack, Yelp, Amazon, Home Services, AdWords, everything, and cut back on what wasn't working for me. When I was first getting started, my cost per acquisition when I was doing it on my own in Google AdWords was about $40 to $50 per client, and I was making about $40 to $50 per client. So I was breaking even on those. I figure I'll make it back if they become recurring, but not a lot of them became recurring. I think my average is people come back at least once. Obviously we have some customers that go back, but just according to my Stripe data, I get about $300 out of the average person. So those numbers weren't the greatest. But with Yelp, when I was first getting started there, as long as you can maintain that 5-star rating or 4.5-star and make it look authentic and real and something that people actually want to do business with, it was like $10 an acquisition there. So when I was first getting started, I figured I'm going to double down on Yelp, use Yelp to grow the business, and then as I get a little bit bigger and we have a little bit more room and I've got a little bit more budget, then I'll start spending the $1,000, $2,000 a month on Google AdWords or $500 on Google AdWords or whatever as we slowly grow. So for me, it was what's my time commitment? Like Thumbtack, because I wasn't working with any virtual assistants back then, or it didn't have any employees, so Thumbtack was too time consuming for me. Google AdWords was a lot to manage, but if I just stuck with Yelp, it was the least time commitment and the highest return on investment, so I doubled down there. And then once I got a little bit bigger, I'm kind of starting to hit the ceiling in my area for Yelp in terms of just how much volume I can do there. So now I'm starting to branch out into Google AdWords, doing more SEO. So even as a former SEO guy, I'm paying a company to help me with my SEO. And I kind of worked backwards. Instead of trying to do each one of those, just try to do one really, really good, and then slowly add marketing channels as you get a little bit more runway. That was my strategy. So I would stick with Yelp if you're just getting started out, but do not ignore Google Google AdWords because it can be really killer if you get it done right.
Okay, so I think that that is the last question. Ryan, where can people follow you to get some more information?
Well, yeah, just search Ryan Knoll in the Groove Learning group or the Launch 27 Facebook group. I'm in there. Feel free to add me as a friend on Facebook. I've got a blog, Knoll, Knoll.co. I don't really post there very often, but every now and then I'm on there. Also got my email address and other things on there. So if you need to get a hold of me, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to talk to just about anybody and help anybody out if they need it. Yeah, that's pretty much me.
Okay, very cool. So, like Brian said, you can reach out to him, you can reach out to me, and I will also be sending out this great white paper that Ryan wrote.
Cool, and thanks for having me on here, Dara, and thanks everybody for letting me share some wisdom with people. I don't really know a lot of stuff, so it's always fun for me to talk about the couple of subjects that I know. So
Yes, it was great. I've got some work to do, and I can't wait to share the white paper with everyone. It does make a
awesome.
difference doing the little things. The big picture adds up to, as you can testify to, a lot of money. So.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. That 1 or 2% improvement can give dividends for sure.
Yeah. All right. So thank you again. Reach out to either one of us if you have any questions. And we'll be putting out the white paper and then also the next topic for next month's webinar.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.